All right, let's call to order the Town Center Advisory Board for April 17th, 2025. May we please have a roll call?
Okay, this is going to be in position order instead of alphabetical order this time because we're going off of a different sheet. Vice Chair Stephenson?
Here.
Committee Member Cantrell? I'll double check that he's not on there. Committee Member Castillo, White? Chair Knight?
Present.
Robbie's entering the chat. She's what? Entering the room. Oh. I'm gonna say his name again since he was just entered. Committee Member Cantrell?
Here.
Committee Member Rizzo?
Here.
Committee Member Kester?
Here.
Committee Member Hill?
Here.
Committee Member Prickett?
Here.
Committee Member Winters?
Here.
Thank you. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for public comments on non-agenda items. I see two guests with us tonight, Paul online and Frank in the house. Either of you have anything that you would like to share with us to start off? Paul?
Nope, nothing for now.
Great, thank you. Okay. Now for the meat and bone, or meat of the discussion, the RFP proposal.
Sure, I'll go ahead and kick us off here. Hold on one second, let me share my screen. Thanks. All right. So I'm sure all of you have been looking forward to this day of receiving proposals that we had sent out in late January, early February, and the due date for these requests for qualifications were due on April 4th. We did received one proposal, which was sent out to the group about 2.5 weeks ago to review. The proposal came from Ethos Development, Time Equities, NATO Development, Hacker Architecture, and Brimmick Construction. That's the development team that has put together the proposal that everyone has reviewed. And I just want to tee up this conversation a little bit and set some parameters and expectations of what an RFQ is. An RFQ, we're looking at their qualifications. Does this team make sense to move forward with, to have conversations, maybe to enter into negotiations for development of the site? The RFQ is not a site development plan. It does not get into the nitty-gritty details. Things shown in this RFQ will change over time significantly. If the city does decide to move into negotiations and they select this team for site development, they'll be out doing public engagement. That's part of land use. They'll come in and have land use hearings before the planning commission where the community gets to come in and testify and give public comment, and they'll be able to give public comment. And the public engagement that this team actually does to gather input for what the community would like to see on the site and how it's developed, how it looks over time. So I just want to set that expectation up right now that what is actually shown here will change over time. Really, they're just showing like what are the base land uses that make the most sense for that site, and setting, some parameters for, building, potential building footprints, and also looking at, a conceptual street layout. It's really just a concept plan. So with that, TCAB this evening, you're gonna consider making some recommendations to the urban renewal board next Tuesday, actually. We wanna know if you wanna move forward with having this development team come in and interview. And if so, what are some additional interview questions that we should be asking them? And then who makes up the interview panel? I think last go around, we had 2 TCAB members, 2 city councilors, 2 staff, and then we had 1 or 2 local development professionals. Does that make sense? Or 3 local. Does that still make sense? That's what we want to know, so we can go ahead and reach out to some folks that we know.
I have a question. Diane, so this is before the council reviews it. Is it this, we're talking about the setup of the next step?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the next step, and I have the next steps in my very last slide, but the next step is inviting this development team to interview.
Okay,
And then after that step, after that interview process, then TCAB would meet again and make a formal recommendation to the URA board to, hey, we would like to, our recommendation is to select this team.
that's fine. Just my recollection, I believe there was only 1 counselor and it was Randy.
Okay.
Not that that makes a difference, 2 might be better than 1, but I just remember Randy only.
Yep, we'll have that, yeah, you guys will be
Yeah.
discussing that and making a recommendation. So again, these are kind of some key phases during this process. We sent out the RFP in late January, it was due in April. We're evaluating the proposal through April and May. So, in May, we'll be holding the interview process, and then in June and September, if this proposal if it moves forward, there'll be the URA will make the selection and start the exclusive negotiating agreement, and then the negotiations will happen, and that could take up to a year. We don't necessarily know, but that could be a process. Did you add more?
No, we have the specific dates for, that we went over with all of you for the interviews and the meetings and whatnot, and I think you have that.
Yeah, and I have that
slide
in
as well.
the last slide.
This is just a general overview of the next steps.
Yep. So, as I said, we received one proposal from Ethos, Time Equities, NATO, Hacker, and Bremick. And I'm gonna just go over the proposal briefly, and I know that you all have had it in your packet. But there might be some folks online tonight who didn't get the opportunity to see the packet or anything, so I just wanna quickly go over the proposal. So right out of the gate here, the development team and their program summary really talks about community engagement and how community engagement, is a big part of the process. When speaking about housing, they have provided a mix of housing in this proposal. They have a mix of apartment buildings and townhomes, and the apartments are in two types. They had three-story walk-ups, and then they had, it was like two 5-story mixed-use buildings. And the apartments, ranged in size to create, a flexibility for diversity of families, from studios to 3 bedrooms. They had, they showed amenities that they would have on site, such as, rec rooms, spas, rooftop patios for folks. And then they had townhomes, which also had a mix of tenure. So some could be rented, some would be owned. The townhomes they showed would be, it would activate the streetscape, as parking would be located in the rear of the townhomes, and the townhomes would be oriented around a shared park. They also talked about, having a hospitality use on the site, a 70,000 square foot hotel, about 130 rooms. The hotel would have direct access to, the cycling routes, and it would support traffic to downtown businesses and to the outlets, and it could also support a restaurant and group home. I should just jump in, Marley.
No, not going too fast. The only thing I'll add is that in the beginning of the request for qualification response, they talk a lot about their experience in each of these different sectors as well. So while they're listing out their qualifications as individual organizations, they're also giving examples for each of these uses. And so they've given us a number of examples for each, and they've identified which of those partners in the team was a part of that project. One of the things that I'll just note, since we're highlighting the hospitality right now, is that NATO Development is a new additional developer to this team, and we received a response from them in our previous RFQ process, and NATO Development was not part of that team, and they have a couple of the listings on the hospitality and tourism category, so they've got some experience in that, so that experience has been pulled for there.
So the group really, it talks about in this proposal, the site really having an extension of the downtown experience. So they have created, and they have shown access ways on here, from the new linear park to accessing downtown to, a possible proposed parking garage, maybe with the bridge into the downtown area at a future date. And, overall, when they talk about, housing, any housing that you have in this area is really going to support your downtown businesses. They talk about creating a space for community. So they have shown some outdoor kind of recreational additional plazas, how they would incorporate, the possibility of the water tower that's there. And they've shown a park near the townhome. So we talk about, activating the space, which we talked about in our RFQ. And of course, they talk about connecting to nature, in regards to potential like view corridors, pocket parks, rooftop decks, lounges and workspaces that are, open and have that connection and feeling to the nature that is there in the Confluent site.
Diane again. Do we ask questions later? Or,
Yeah, let's,
okay.
yeah, save your questions. This is almost.
Okay, it was just
done.
about that picture. I have
We
the
can
pictures
circle
written
back.
down.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
definitely circle back to anything.
Thank you.
And once again, connecting to neighbors, connecting to the, waterfront, park, and being really supportive of, maybe a additional parking structure and transit, and other uses. So this is a slide that I put together. It's just a comparison slide from the proposals that were received in 2003 to this proposal that you have before you. So it talks about, the total number of housing units. So this proposal is about 397. But remember, this could all change because this is not a final site plan. They're just kind of guesstimating, this is just a concept. And previously in the 2023 plan, they also had shown roughly around 397, which 340 would be apartments and 57 townhomes. And then for commercial square footage, they're proposing, roughly 35,000 square feet with the hotel use. And I know we're probably gonna talk about height because I believe the TCAB talked about height last go around, and certainly I have things to say about height. And I know all of you will probably have things to say about height too. And then as far as, apartment comparable goes in the area, here's a slide that, I just looked at some recent examples in the area. So, you have the Byway development in Wood Village, and that's 173 units, those are 3-story buildings. It comes out to roughly 14 dwelling units per acre. And that this is kind of back of the napkin map here from their website. Box Ridge, which was just built on Halsey. So also, again, those are 3 stories, about 166 units. That comes out to about 27 dwelling units per acre. Eagle Ridge, you have 216 units. The Alta Civic Station and it's not downtown Gresham, but it's Gresham Station, excuse me, I wanna get that right. And that's right, Alta Civic Station, that complex is right where the new coffee shop is, Kanos Coffee. It's very near the transit station, and what's the name of the sandwich?
There's a sandwich shop and I
Yes.
want to say Oriental restaurant as well.
I think so. I know that there's a sandwich shop right there. So that is kind of, they have live-work townhomes in there, and that's about 318 units altogether. And then you kind of have an older development, just right at the edge of Civic Station at 15th Street, and it's a gated kind of community townhouse development. And the maximum height in that zone is 4 to 6 stories, but most of the buildings in that development are roughly 3 stories, and it comes out to roughly 25 units per acre for that development as well, and there's 264 units. And I know scale can be really hard to, to comprehend and to think about. But I wanted to put a little bit of context around, density and scale. And the confluence site is about 16 acres in size. And so if you, if you think of, Box Ridge, 166, it's like a little less than 2 box ridges down on that 16-acre site with hotels and some retail development. And I know it's probably really hard to picture 16 acres as well, but if you go down there and look, it's big, it's expansive.
So based upon the napkin math, 400 units, 16 acres is 25, it's right in there.
Yep. Yeah. Which, it is zoned mixed use urban 3 within the city. And that is the highest, that's the highest density in Troutdale that is zoned. And it was zoned that way to, really create a walkable, friendly, environment that supports both housing and retail. And in the region, when we talk about high density, 25 units is oftentimes like not considered the highest of densities. In places. 25 units, per acre. You're looking at mid-level, apartments, or even, they get a little like denser, like they're proposing, they could be 4 to 5 stories.
The town center plan also does a good job of articulating how this scale can sort of be visualized when you're downtown. So I know there's a number of images in the town center plan that show you how the different heights wouldn't necessarily have as much impact on the view from downtown because of the grade change. The grade change between downtown and then going down below the railroad tracks is quite significant. So that's a good thing to reference as well, is that when the town center plan was created, they made accommodations for height in this specific area because of the grade differentiation from the rest of downtown.
And I can say from personal experience that having a grade change, the grade change makes all the difference in the world when you're looking at building height.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was worried for a little bit about what having 3-story apartments across the street from me what it would impact. And because of the significant downward grade, it's not nearly what we feared.
So this is just recapping kind of the recommendations that we're looking out of the committee this evening, but then on to next steps, like we talked about. So next Tuesday, TCAB would make a recommendation to the URA Board. Then on May 15th, that's our tentative dates to hold interviews if TCAB decides to move forward, bringing this team back to go through the interview process. And then on May 29th, we would have a special TCAB meeting. And out of that meeting, TCAB would be making a recommendation to the URA Board to select this team to move the process forward. And then the URA Board would hear that recommendation on June 17th. So with that, I'm going to open it up back up. I'm going to rally back to the chair and we can have some conversations.
Okay, so just to recap then, we have three things we're trying to really accomplish tonight. Do we decide that we, regardless of the specific details we may or may not be able to answer tonight, we'll have a great discussion about the potentials of the actual proposal that comes in. The actions we're trying to do tonight would be, are we comfortable moving forward with them? What additional interview questions do we want the panel to ask these people? Specifically, probably more about those questions that we have clarified further. And then lastly, we need to decide what to recommend the interview panel to be. So I suppose let's open it up to a discussion, questions, comments in regards to trying to accomplish those three goals tonight. Like to start,
Do we
Pam?
need to start?
Go for it.
I think it's a very interesting proposal. I think that where we talk about time equities and the relationship with the mall and the relationship with the team itself is interesting, and I think it's kind of a little bit of a segue to an opportunity being there to do something different than what happened last time. So I would definitely be in favor of bringing them in, sitting down with them, and hearing more about what their actual vision is and how they would accomplish that vision. Because frankly, I've been pretty open about this, I think a key to the success of this is going to be access through the mall. And I think that's, instead of being told absolutely no way, now we're getting told, well, you know, something might be happening. It'd definitely be worth exploring and figuring out what it looks like.
The thing that worries me about because I agree 100% about what you said, Tammy, but my primary concern is that there seems to be a number of critical usability ideas that are left in the realm of future potentials. Like they have a vision of being an extension of downtown, but the Ped Bridge across the railroad is a giant maybe, or the parking garage is a giant maybe, and punching a hole through the outlet mall isn't even really a certainty. So there seems, I would want to see or hear a little more language around solidity of the vision, if that makes any sense. Because if we get into this and some of those critical access points then get decided, oh, well, that's not going to be financially feasible with how things are playing out for the next 15 years, then it's this whole operation is going to feel a lot more like a bait and switch.
But I would just say, we're in the RFQ stage.
Yeah, no, I totally get
not
that.
the RFP stage yet.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. It's just the tone from some of those things. I totally understand that things are going to change massively. It's just the way the tone is changing or is sounding on some of the items does leave me a little concerned, I guess is all I'm saying.
I guess I would also say, I think it's kind of interesting that we have a proposal, given everything that's going on economically, and the tariffs and labor costs and all of those things.
True.
Because it'd be really hard to nail any of this down when you don't know what your materials are gonna cost. You don't know really what the retail and the housing market are gonna do. So I mean, it kind of, in a way, puts them kind of in an interesting position.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that is the other thing, is I think this was probably received before the world economy went completely all topsy-turvy. So yeah, with the way things are going, who knows?
Because you remember when we did this, we were like, oh, everything's gonna be settled down by then, and no one kind of wound up then, you know, more than settled down.
So this is Jim. I'd say that we're gonna see a lot more change in the coming months, just in the economy and a lot of other things. So we have no way of knowing, nor waiting out change that may happen. I was impressed with, as Erica mentioned, the first things that they talked about were community engagement in the visioning process. So they presented some concepts that actually introduced some really interesting ideas that I'm sure will be debated long after this meeting and for many months. But I liked the ideas that came through. I was also heightened or buoyed up by the experience that's shown here. They're great letters of recommendation, and of course, great projects behind all the teams that are represented there. Having done some large projects, this was very well organized, and I would say, I mean, do they have another comment here? We'll have a lot of questions. I do have questions about height, and zoning and what's required and all that, but that's coming later. And I would just say that my first impression was this was the best of the proposals that was received. I thought it was great. I would think we should move forward, but that's my thoughts.
I'll apologize in advance for anyone joining us on Zoom. I'll keep clicking through to see if there's any hands raised, but I try to catch you. Diane?
Oh, yeah, okay, so it's the only one we received. I have some questions that I'd like some clarification on, and then also some concerns, and I don't know if any of the concerns that we might have, if you're intending to give them a memo, hey, just so you know, these were some things that were brought up or not or whatever, but I think I'd understand a little bit more if I did say my concerns were my questions and I got those answered today. One was, so townhouses, how many, they said 50% is what they were possibly selling, or what the ratio is of townhouses versus apartments in this initial proposal?
They have 57 total units for the townhomes and 340 total units for multifamily.
Okay, so when they were talking hotel, and then they did the little caveat at the end of it, when they were talking about not knowing were they saying they weren't sure if the economy, if they would be able to do it? Were they just talking about including a restaurant and a coffee shop? Was that statement for the coffee shop restaurant, or was it for they might not even be able to do a hotel?
So on page 21, where they're talking about hospitality, it says the hotel can support a restaurant or brew pub.
Okay, but then somewhere else they said, it seemed like it was a question if they would do it based upon something else. Let me see where I have that written down. I'll look for it, but because I was trying to think, because if the hotel was only a maybe, based upon the economy and if it was viable to do, if there was a possibility that we could set that portion of property, say we really, really want a hotel, that's new eyes to our retail stores in downtown Troutdale. It's new buyers to the outlet as well. So if you're not able to do it at this time, then maybe we could find somebody that may be interested in doing it. So kind of like we reserve it, we for sure want a hotel here. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if their wording was maybe they'll do it or not.
I think you're referring to on page 31, under hospitality, it says potential to include ground floor retail for a cafe or brew pub.
Yes,
And then it also states pending market study and final programming. And it states that under the retail as well.
right.
So I think that there's gonna be some market studies to determine what specifically. I think that we've been very clear in the RFQ how important hospitality is to us. We can continue to emphasize that and continue to say that, and during the negotiation process, that's where.
Okay,
we
but do you
would
see how I
have
thought
more-
it did, I didn't know if it just pertained to a possible restaurant and cafe in that hotel, or we'll do the study and maybe we're just not even gonna do the hotel.
I think they're proposing they will do the hotel, and
Okay.
it's more of a, what is the mix of retail or food and beverage that accompanies that hotel space?
Okay, also on here, it's because I was saying tourism is key with the hotel. Page 14. Lakeside, I just wanted to note that I liked that approach. So whatever that means, but just the Hudson Hotel on that was, forget what page that was.
It's on page 15.
Okay, I like the concept of the rooftop, but just, they need to know that we have a lot of windy days, so that could maybe blockages or landscaping or something like that. Also, I didn't know if, who they had kind of as, I know they have architect, but who they have as their partner with design aspects, because I really like them to partner with the Troutdale Historical Society for big pictures they could blow up and put in their hotel. Just things I really like them to incorporate some of those things as well, an opportunity. And I just didn't know if that they would be told that now, so they understand that we would value that, because what we value for a lot of us who moved here and what we're seeing and why we enjoy the experience, that amplified is what I'm hoping they do, so that we get to enjoy it, but then also the tourists, they get to understand the flavor and why this area and this space and these views are so special. So I would kind of like to emphasize that a little bit to them, because on page 17, they spoke, a plan committed to long-term partnership with Troutdale, the Sandy River and neighboring communities. I would have liked if they put, there are also our history and the Northwest recreational experience. Because that's why a lot of us like it here too. We like our vistas, we like our views, we like our proximity to the gorge. And then any tourist that would come here and want to spend money, just like Hood River capitalizes on those aspects as well, I'd like for our visitors to get that flavor, and for us to also get an enhancement of that as well, getting to enjoy our spaces and our views in a different way, whether we have a electric bike rental or such, that it's right there. So we have these wonderful paths. It's a different way for us to also discover our spaces as well as tourists. So my point is that if it's good for us, it's good for tourists. I like it to be some way we could enjoy the area more as well. Let's see, when they're talking about the shape of the river's edge on page 18, are they talking about being right on the trail? Because I think a lot of us had a little bit of issue with that. Is there still landscaping space? And I know this is all preliminary, but were they like just wanting to be right up there on the trail, or do we also have a buffer that's our property that we have on both on the west side of the trail as well?
This is Jim. It's probably worth noting that the Parks Group is talking about a park system along that whole area too, which they'll all have to collaborate, I'm sure. And that's planning that they're doing at this right now with Nick and that team.
So that really, so your question about like how close they're gonna be to that park space.
Because they talked about wanting to be right along the,
Yeah, I mean, so that question kind of gets really site specific. But I would assume, and if they're brought back and, you know, we have a conversation with them, that's something that the interview panel would, you know, could bring up and discuss. Like, there's a new park being built, you know, a linear park being built along that space. How far back do you envision these buildings from that space, or how would these buildings interact?
right, or
With
the
that
whole
green
retail
space.
experience on the bottom, because we had, I'm just bringing this up because that was one of the major things we talked about before, was that not feeling when we're walking along the trail that we're walking into somebody's neighborhood. So whether that's accomplished by higher quality retail and restaurants with housing all above, they do a 20-foot height space.
Yep.
So it's not that not cramped, okay, but the burrito shop can feel a little compressed. And when I went to Bend and I did the tour of one of the developments there, they said, no, this is a high standard, we go 20 feet.
Yep. And that little slide matrix that I had when I talk about height in mixed use buildings. Typically, when you have a mixed use building, that lower floor is going to be, quite, high, because if you put in a restaurant or a cafe, the mechanical equipment, needs to go in efficiently. People want large window space for displays. You want to have the flexibility to, move your retail environment around for openness and flexibility of that space. So when they're talking probably about mixed use on that site with the 5-story mixed use building, that bottom floor would be higher, would be greater in height.
Yeah, I'll just add to that really quickly and say, I mean, from the way that they worded it, does sound like they're talking about the buildings being very close to the property line. I don't think that we have a required setback in this zoning district that would require them to be set back further from the property line. But I think that that's something that when we have the interview, we can ask questions, we can emphasize wanting to know, what is the degree of separation, but also what are those active uses along that ground floor level. And I think one of the things that was a little unclear for me, which again, as Erica has emphasized multiple times, this site plan is not the final, this is not what will get built. There's so much room for change and conversation and working into that, but not every building is labeled on this, so it's hard to tell what is a 5-story and what is a 3-story walk-up. But the nice thing with the 5 stories is that if they do have that ground floor retail or restaurant space, that is a more active use than a 3-story walk-up apartment building, which would have apartments on the ground floor. So I think that's where this team can communicate what they would like to see along the ground floor when it is in close proximity to the river like that. And having those active retail, open space. They have a lot of public plaza open space adjacent to the river. The restaurant spaces in particular, I think, having outdoor patios and things like that. Patio space can be, maybe that is right on the property line, but it's open patio space, so it doesn't feel, and then the building starts, or whatever, however it might be designed. As we've said, it's all subject to change.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But
Another point I had was they're struggling with the outlet itself, and some of the choices I don't think are the grandest. It is what it is. It's an outlet. So I talked before about their food choices were Subway and Starbucks. Who did, like before when we liked the one proposal that we picked before, Sam was helping them find the best of who's out there. Like we had somebody that's excelling in hard cider in Hood River, and then there was, and I forget who else that they were suggesting. Are they bringing to the table, besides the architect, besides the builder and whatever, somebody that knows this area because I was hoping you'd almost be on the team as well to assist them in that, to try to get these people that are excelling at what they do, that it's like, why come here? If they're gonna do another, if maybe this guy people that is giving the recommendation brewery, so they're doing another brewery and then having 10 pods for other foodies. Okay, so we're already gonna do that 3 times in Troutdale already on do you know what I mean? So and then we have Sugar Pine, which isn't, you might as well almost call it a brewery as well, with awesome food. And but family friendly as well, because they have ice cream, who's giving that vision? I don't know if they have that visionary to understand what would be exceptional and great, that we'd love it, but we're standing out and we're shining, sparkling a bit, that they have to visit, and then prayerfully that they're gonna come to downtown as well.
Yeah, so the proposal does not say anything about who their commercial broker would be. The outlet mall's current commercial broker is Norris Stevens for the existing property of the outlet mall. I don't know if that will continue to be their commercial broker. They've had many different commercial brokers over the years, but their current one is Norris Stevens, and I do know that some of the people on that team are from the Troutdale area, so they're really familiar with the area. I would say that those are great questions. I think those are wonderful interview questions to ask about, like, what would their commercial broker process, how do they recruit new businesses? How are they attracting new businesses? How can the city help with the business attraction process? Right now, downtown doesn't have one collective commercial broker, and so sometimes I act as a commercial broker in a way, as the economic development coordinator. So I do a lot of selling of Troutdale for vacant spaces, and I can see that same scenario happening here. We're trying to make connections with different businesses, but I think that's a wonderful question for the interviews for sure.
Yeah, because otherwise, how do we stand out? If we're gonna get another Starbucks and we get another Subway and it's like, of course, the views are gonna be amazing, but if I'm not living in one of those beautiful apartments, then what are the additional attractions again? I think if you take care of us first, then it's gonna be a hit with the tourists and everybody else if they meet the little things that are gonna make it incredibly special. So, okay, that was a concern. I think I just have one more. What is the building by the railroad? Is that another apartment?
Yeah, this is where I was saying that it's not clear on the site plan what each of the buildings are. I mean, you can make some guesses based on how they've drawn them, what each building is, but it is not labeled as such. So, we don't have any clear certainty one way or another. But again, I think that that's something that is subject to change, but we can ask them more details about what specific buildings do they see along the riverfront, since that is such an important topic to cover.
My last point is that, to me, parking is still incredibly important, even if they are somehow, if they get, they're gonna be our partners. Because I know that they could use the outlet parking as well, but I'm still always concerned about our current downtown, and so if they stick with the parking, like potentially future parking garage, but keep for sure cement that parking that's there, people can still park and then walk around and go under the bridge, go to the depot and then visit downtown. So that's my desire to, that we cement that location for parking regardless if they are chosen or not chosen, because especially with, I don't know what amount of units if they're selected they'll end up with, for visitors and stuff like that, and anything else we wanna do, we still need, as much parking as possible. Right, thank you.
It does, yeah, it appears that that's what they're proposing on this, and I think that that's a good suggestion to utilize that space, to make sure, as we plan into the future.
Thank you.
Are we?
I read it. I like the idea that they're gonna seek out information from our community before they cement something in stone, which is important because if you build it without community input, they tend to get a little worried and scared, and then they don't want it. And the fact that it's a group and not just one company. So there's probably gonna be a diversity of ideas that may come from this, because there is a group. Again, I agree with Diane that we should ask the questions that she has, because those are the same questions I have. But it's not, they're just to give me kind of a comfort zone kind of deal. But I do like it. I mean, they come across and they gave great ideas. They give not just one, but several places where you could go check it out and see. And diverse as far as communities. They're not all in like Lake Oswego, you know, but they're like in Eastern Oregon and smaller communities. So I really like this plan, this group.
Obviously, I wasn't here for the first run through, so when I read through it, I thought, well, I mean, it looks like great ideas. You guys have already had discussions on stuff when I look and I go, but wait a minute, that railroad, train blows its whistle, like a lot sometimes it seems like. And then I was thinking, and that freeway noise can be a lot sometimes. So just kind of like thinking about our weather conditions and when we end up with I-84 closed, doesn't the mall end up filling kind of with a lot of trucks waiting to get on the road again, or does that not happen?
No,
No,
not the mall.
Not the mall.
They can't get in and out of themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but otherwise, I mean, with what you had prefaced with, should we interview them to see if they meet qualifications or whatever, I think seems like a perfectly reasonable thing, I mean, to talk to them.
I would trust the east window a lot.
And then the only other thing I was, just as people had been noting, and everything changes, but on that page 24, where it talks about basically visual and physical river access, in our parks meeting, it seemed pretty clear that we weren't having any real access to the river along this park.
Yeah, the topography of that shelf area is not conducive to much in terms of access to the river at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe further south of the bridge, Glen Auto area.
Okay, so that was just like of a concern, like if they think that's
They'll see that
possible,
when they
that
get
wasn't gonna be.
No, they know that there's no, well, it does show, that is actually probably good to know, because they do actually show pedestrian access coming down off of that, and
And
that's,
if I may, in the RFP on page 17, we showed a map of the conceptual parks project that's already in place or being developed. So we've already presented that, so
Yeah.
we'll, of course, have to reiterate that as we continue.
right. This trail does connect with the I-84 pedestrian bridge that takes you across the river where there is proper beach access.
There you go.
So, and that's what we stressed in the RFQ document as well, is that is the connection to the bridge, or to the beach, sorry, excuse
And
me.
we showed them that on our site tour too, like the access over 84 to additional beach access.
Yeah. There's great views from that spot because you're more elevated up above the river, but it is a very steep drop off and it's very rocky and it's not beachy like Glen Otto and Lewis and Clark and Dabney are. So
There's plenty of foliage, so the view isn't of the river itself necessarily. You'll have great views to the north perhaps, and snow on the mountains up there, and so.
yeah, and the blackberries will get cleared out soon, hopefully.
How about Robbie or Victoria? Any comments from either of you?
When I said deja vu at the last meeting, I never thought I was going to see time equities again. That really shocked me. I'm all for the interview and going for it. I have some of the same concerns Diane had. And I would have liked to seen a little bit, and I know this is all going to be discussed. I would have liked to seen a little more private housing. But none of the rest of them that we've had much private housing either. My only big concern was I hope we can work with time equities on this. And I mean, what we went through last time and the cease and desist order and that kind of stuff sort of makes me wary. And then I looked up a lot on the internet about them, and they have some good reviews, but they have some reviews about they're very hard to work with. But maybe that's changed, so we can see and do the interview and see how it goes.
Remick is doing this building site here, correct?
Correct.
How's it been working with that company?
Excellent.
Yeah.
I haven't had any complaints about the construction on that site. I've had one or two complaints about downtown parking, but those are general complaints about downtown parking in general, and we've been doing the best that we can. We put up new signs.
But the company.
But the company in Bremen, yeah, they've been great, excellent
Thank you.
to work with.
Well, there's lots of construction parking at the outlet mall for them to utilize, so.
I guess for myself, I'm happy to see that one of the big parts of the vision with access through the outlet mall now is potentially on the table. I think that alone is a huge benefit of working with this team. Don't want to speculate too much, but maybe, with in mind Victoria's last comment, maybe they were a little miffed that we didn't actually come back and like, hey, well, here's some things we'd like to change. We're going to try to not use you, but still get your access, right? So maybe that kind of put up the wall. But now I feel like with this one, at least the tone and the way that it's written with, hey, we want community involvement. We want you guys to tell us what your vision is. We really want this project to work because they mentioned it a bunch of times, like the underlining theme for time equity's involvement is going to be the future new construction of more retail in there. We're going to be bringing 400 families, 1,500 people maybe as permanent residents potentially, and then plus all the traffic that comes through, not only our own citizens with the farmers markets and the events and the concerts and whatnot, but then the hotel coming through as well. This is a big benefit to that property that is failing. And so I feel like them coming to the table is saying, hey, we want to participate, we want to listen to you guys because it's going to benefit us as well as you. So I feel like it's a pretty good fit for this, and I am totally comfortable with moving forward with an interview with these folks.
Can I ask, I wasn't part of the earlier go about with this. How long ago was this, Dan?
23.
Okay, so not that long ago. Okay. Thanks.
I guess with question number one from our list, the first one, before we get to what questions we may want to ask, should we take a vote on whether we would like to move forward with having an interview with this team?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we request staff to set up an interview with the Ecos team.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Okay, that carries. Next on our agenda would be to try to come up with a list of some additional interview questions. I kind of wrote a few notes down here. Adrian started. He had some questions regarding the certainty of certain things like the bridge, the parking structure, and access through the mall. Diane had several questions regarding questions about the hotel, about the retail and dining. Had questions regarding placemaking, I believe the term is, for partnering with the Historical Society. There was a question regarding a buffer from the linear park, and Jim mentioned the Parks Committee was interested in, or was involved with that too. Another one of Diane's questions had to do with local Northwest brands and the process to attract them into the commercial and dining spaces. And then another question came up regarding what were the ideas for what buildings, because of the noise, like Jerry said, what buildings along the riverfront and the tracks were going to be there, kind of what they have in mind for that. And then I think a valid question, and I don't know how you appropriately word this, but what is their temperature in regards to the cease and desist and now this coming back, and like where, you know, Victoria's question, how hard are they to work with, and is that going to be an issue maybe, is kind of what possibly Victoria was getting at.
I think if I propose another topic of questioning would be, again, I liked that we want to involve the community. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that process might entail and kind of a timeline. If it's, we're going to involve the community for questions in a 3-day period, that's not adequate.
Yeah.
We're going to do it over this period, we're going to do these sorts of activities might be helpful. Perhaps there's a conceptual display that they can walk through or some other things, but I think the community would be, it would reinforce the belief in this process from the community to see that there's going to be at least a somewhat extended process of a conversation.
So would it be easiest to, I have up on the screen the questions that we asked in the interview the last time we did this. Would it be helpful to go through these questions, see which are covered, or which of our topics we've already discussed are covered in the existing questions, and then we can write live right here whatever other questions we want to ask them and get that wording nailed down? Okay, so I'm just gonna read through each of these, and Chair, if you wouldn't mind like noting if a topic gets covered, like one of the topics on your list gets covered as I'm writing or saying them out loud.
Marley, in the last go around a couple of years ago, there was one company that was presenting, and now there's 5, or is that not correct?
No, we had 3 proposals that were interviewed.
They were standalone, but we have a group of 5 companies working now. Were they all like that, or were they standalone?
Yes.
They all were development teams, not everyone indicated. Some had more people in their team than others.
Okay.
So not everyone, I don't think that anyone except for this development team indicated who their construction partner would be.
Oh, I see.
That's very rare, but I think because Bremick is local to Troutdale, they really wanted to be a part of this, and so they joined forces with the team early.
I ask because these are questions from the last go-around,
Yeah,
and it may be that things like that may enhance our questioning if we recognize that there's more involved than there were before, if that's the case.
yes. So if you hear any of that, or if you wanna flag any changes, maybe note them down or raise your hand as I'm going, whichever is easiest. So the first topic that we asked about is the team introduction and roles. I'm sorry. The first thing was a presentation. We asked them to do a presentation on their vision. So they had to provide a presentation first for 20 minutes, or they could use up to 20 minutes. And then we asked these questions, or we asked them to cover these questions in their presentation to us. So introduce your team members and define their respective roles. Identify who will serve as the project manager and describe their key responsibilities in delivering this project. I think that one speaks a little bit to, not quite specifically to Victoria's point, but also the person who's the project manager is who we will have the most interaction with. So it'll be helpful to know, is it someone from Ethos, is it someone from NATO, is it someone from Brummett, you know, who are the project managers for that. The next one is the project vision and site activation. So provide a brief overview of your vision for the site. In your response, incorporate the following elements. The Confluence project aims to create a vibrant, welcoming space for both locals and visitors. What specific public or publicly accessible spaces are you proposing, and how will they be activated? And identify the primary public-facing commercial areas and describe their intended character and function. The next is riverfront design and engagement. The ground floor of buildings along the riverfront plays a critical role in integrating with the park and trail system. How will you ensure this edge is inviting to visitors, users, and residents? Describe your design approach for ground level uses and features that contribute to a welcoming and engaging experience for park and trail users. Then we have design, quality, and differentiation. The community values high quality, thoughtfully designed housing that enhances the area's character and appeal. How will your development achieve a high standard of design and quality? In what ways does your proposal differentiate from conventional suburban garden style apartments, particularly regarding architectural features, site layout, and amenities? Next is development timeline and key milestones. So outline the anticipated development timeline covering at a minimum the following critical milestones: negotiation and execution of an exclusive negotiation agreement, negotiation and execution of a development and disposition agreement, establishment of a site development plan, property subdivision and phase 1 property closing, phase 1 infrastructure design, phase 1 infrastructure construction, phase 1 vertical development design, phase 1 vertical development construction, phase 1 project opening, phase 1 and scope and financial considerations. Describe the scope and scale of your anticipated first phase. What portion of the site will be developed initially? What types and amounts of development are planned for the first phase? Do you anticipate a positive residual land value for the first phase? If so, are you prepared to speculate on a purchase price? The next section, so that was all what they were supposed to include in their presentation, that 20-minute presentation. The next were the actual questions that we were asking them and having them respond to. So this is beyond their presentation. What challenges do you anticipate in developing this site and bringing your vision to life? How do you plan to address those challenges, and what support do you envision from the city? How has the current market environment shaped your development plans? And do you foresee any market changes in the next 1 to 3 years that might influence your strategy? Regarding home ownership housing, will you be developing ownership housing directly or selling parcels to home builders? If home builders, how will you ensure high quality development from third-party builders? How are current interest rates impacting the ownership housing market, and do you expect any changes that could affect your approach? For the commercial component of your project, have your views on the type and amount of retail that would succeed here evolved? Beyond eateries / breweries, what other retail, light industrial, or makerspace uses could work on this site? can you elaborate on the hotel component? Who is the target market? Which type of hotel, limited service, extended stay, full service, boutique experience, etc. do you think fits best? At what stage of the development would you build the hotel? And then would you consider a long-term ground lease instead of a property sale? If not, why? If yes, how would that affect your approach, if at all? What is your public engagement strategy and why is your team particularly well suited for community involvement? And then any additional questions that they have. So,
Okay, this is, okay, we're dealing with time equity. They work on portfolio for their investors. So they're gonna want to make everything as much rental as possible and do less sales of townhomes, I would imagine. I'm just thinking ahead again because of what council has said before, and that before they said that they were kind of adamant about almost no apartments. So I don't know how to encourage them to propose as much home ownership opportunities as possible. And I don't know if we all would agree with that or not. I'm just wanting to kind of take into account past conversations over the years and directions we were going and how we were, in comparison with the other proposals that we got the last time, how we were very taken aback with how many apartments they were proposing at that time. So just taking all that into consideration and just trying to facilitate something that might work and be, I don't know, so. Because right now, again, I'm sorry, you said the amount, the townhouses was gonna be 57,
I believe that's correct, yeah.
and then were they all gonna be for sale?
No, it's not clear.
Okay.
So I think that
They said a mix.
Yeah, some rentals.
And I'm trying to find it now, but thought I saw a reference in there somewhere where, there was the potential that some of the apartments even were going to be sold rather than leased. I'm like,
You find the
I could have been dreaming there when I read that.
I know that they say buildings will be compromised with studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom to support diversity of family sizes. But I don't see anything in there in regards to ownership.
Well, I'd say one of the first, this is a similar question to what we had last time, but one of the first things I think it's worth asking them is whether they will be developing the townhomes themselves, or are they selling that piece of land off to another
And that was in here?
developer?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right,
so will you be developing?
but they seem to have it's still a good question, but they seem to kind of, with the new partners, arming with people that they have, that maybe that might be the people doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
Remick has experience
Right.
with Discovery Block, which is right in Troutdale that we see all the time.
Homeward Bound too.
Yeah, well, that one being multifamily, Discovery Block being for sale townhomes, that they built those. So it's worth asking them that question, because then we know whether they can actually answer the, will it be home ownership or will it be rental housing? Because if they're not the ones building it, then they won't be able to necessarily answer that.
Okay.
And I think that we could add, oh, my battery's about to die. I think that we could, is there another question that you wanna add in there that
No. You mean that's a different subject, or looks like you,
Or getting to home ownership.
Maybe a question about how open are they to
Yeah.
discussing
Yeah.
that ratio?
there we go, that's what I was thinking. Are they flexible?
Yeah, I would say you ask them, okay, what is the role of everyone on the team? Is someone an equity partner? Or are they part of the, construction mechanism? What is their role? In other words, time equities may not have anything to do with the development that's there. They may just be in the outlet mall portion.
Okay.
That might be their whole role, or they could be funding another part of it. And are there any companies that would be part of this that are not represented here today? You have other partners that would be involved. And then I would also say we get into phasing. What exactly is getting done in phase 1, 2, and 3? I think we should kind of nail that down as well as we can, because so many things are contingent upon a marking study. So what is it that you're actually committing to build versus what is it that you might build?
Right, yeah, because that'll cover pretty much all of my concerns.
And then I would say, we're talking about possibly a fee simple title. Are they open to any other options? And how do they want to handle the infrastructure? SDCs, things like that. Are we too far in at that point?
Can you,
I mean, what are they looking for from the city in a nutshell? And that's a loaded question, but it's already on the table, right?
yeah, it's likely that they'll reemphasize what they state in the deal terms section, which states that they wanna use TIF funding for
Right.
XYZ.
They want to use TIF funding and they want to do a fee simple title, but based on a market study for what?
We could ask them to go into more
Detail market
details
study.
around the deal terms and market studies that could impact the overall site development.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go back up to the presentation section.
And some of it's contingent upon, construction pricing and things that could go on for a long time or not. So is it like you're gonna build it before the permits run out, or you're gonna, ask for an extension, or what exactly is the plan?
And we even said in there that phase 1 would start in the south and then would move north. So that would be
Correct.
parking and then apartments and then townhomes and then hotel last.
Right, but you know what I'm saying, what is that? They're starting, south and moving north, but are they doing the entire development as they move? Are they doing pieces of it as they move? The only thing they're really have said for sure is parking in a hotel or in apartments. Right? For phase 1, isn't everything else market driven or market study driven? So it's kind of like, when would these other components happen, or would they happen?
This is Sherry. I have a probably not very smart question to ask, but what is the most beneficial for the city? I mean, to have what part built first?
In what way, tax-wise, or?
Yeah, probably.
Retail,
But can retail be
Multifamily.
supported down there if there's not
well,
some
it's the
site?
chicken and the egg, you gotta have really both of them.
Okay. All right.
But it'll, just someone privately owning it will benefit the city.
And having people down there will support downtown.
Yes.
Right.
I do think that having the people down there also gives them more, proof of concept to the potential hoteliers. So when they're going to try to attract a hotelier, having the first phase already built and completed allows them to sell the vision of that a little bit better to people. If they build it, they will come, they've gotta build that first part to be able to sell the rest of it, so. I'm not surprised that they put the hotel as phase 2, that was what we saw from every other proposal last go around as well.
It does seem like if there's a phase 1 with the bridge, the pedestrian bridge almost has to be part of that if that area is gonna be successful. I know you can walk around under the railroad, but let's face it, that is less desirable than a direct connection to the downtown area. And I think earlier in this meeting, we talked about that being a possible future thing, but I think it needs to be more emphasized as an important aspect of the project. If we're talking about this supporting the downtown core in a substantial way.
And then is it gonna be is the primary negotiating person with Union Pacific going to be the development team, or is it gonna be the city?
Property owner.
That is a great question.
Period.
A long term.
I don't know that I can answer right now, but it's probably gonna have to be a joint effort.
Yeah.
A lot of
I wasn't expecting
collaboration.
a solid answer, right?
Yeah, no, I think
that
it's
was very
gonna-
much a theoretical.
I think it's gonna take a lot of collaboration to have those conversations and negotiations, and I think that that's probably something, I mean, you'd wanna get started. It's gonna take a long time. It's not quick to work with Union Pacific,
But
so.
Ray talks to them. Nobody's been able to do that for 20 years. You?
Well, she's got the touch.
I know she does.
She has ways.
Okay, another question. If that pedestrian bridge couldn't happen, or it couldn't happen for a period of time, this area could still be successful being built, just wouldn't have the same impact for the downtown core?
Yeah, I walk a lot. So not everybody does, but walking down underneath to get to downtown Troutdale, if you're in an apartment right there, close to it, it's not gonna be that big a deal. Cause you got the park and you've got the path, so if you make it easy access, they're gonna go. Whether that bridge is there or not, they'll find a way to get there.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
I think for the downtown, one of the desires of the parking structure is to help alleviate some of the parking
Right.
Sure.
for downtown, the
Sure.
parking issues for downtown, so it's almost the other way, like the people who live on this site will probably, as Shirley was saying, figure out their way to walk around and get to downtown. It's just that we probably won't see people choosing to park on that site and then walk to downtown as much as we would people who live there walking
Sure.
downtown. Without the parking structure, that is.
Or the hotel visitors would walk as well.
I would say, as exciting as it is to have something happen, phase 1 is practically trunk monkey. Putting in the apartments is kind of the easy part of getting that to work. It's phase 2 and 3 that are gonna be the challenge, and those are gonna be the items that really make this something or not.
Right.
It's not gonna be a couple of apartment buildings down there. That's not really gonna it's gonna put more rooftops, yes, more people in downtown, more need for services, but having those other retail and commercial components down there, having the other ones finished out, having it all become a synergistic environment, that takes at least phase 2 to do that.
And one thing I think that needs to be highlighted in the interviews is kind of what we were talking earlier about the recruitment and filling process of that retail, because
Commercial brokers, yeah.
yeah, one thing we absolutely cannot afford, at least in my opinion, with this site, is to have a repeat of the byway, where you had the ground floor retail space that was empty for years.
But we wouldn't be able to control that.
Yeah, no, understood, but having the developer come in with strategies on what their plan is to avoid that is something that would be good to hear.
Well, but then it's not just filling the spaces, it's quality.
Well, right, yeah.
Quality
Right,
spaces.
and you don't wanna fill it with garbage, but you really don't want it to sit vacant for a really long period of time. I mean, that's almost worse.
Well, and we know with the byway, okay, the tenants that they have weren't their first choice or their second choice, but they were a choice. And, you know, if it doesn't work, you end up getting what you get.
But it's the strategy I wanna hear.
It's also how they market it
Yeah,
and signage, because that little coffee shop that's in Civic Station, you don't know it's there because there's a little sign hanging out on the building, and you drive by and you can't tell. You have to have an A-frame out front saying it's this way. But they don't, but everybody seems to know it's there. Yeah.
So, with the questions that people have brought up, getting them back to what Marley's putting in there, do you guys feel like your questions have been included in the interview questions, or would you like to massage them a little bit more?
One aspect that was mentioned was the historic nods to history, and I think that maybe the first part, point number 4, maybe that sentence could be enhanced just a little bit to enhance the area's character appeal and history and nod to history or something like that.
The historical
Or
value.
recognition of historic value, something along those lines. I think that the community would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe this statement should just say thoughtfully designed buildings and not be specific to housing.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That enhances the character, the area's character.
And honors the
History.
historic,
Historical significance.
yeah.
Character,
honors
history,
Yeah.
and appeal.
statue, dead sheep on there.
The area's, what did you say, Tammy?
The area's character, history, and appeal.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh,
Enhances and honors, maybe, yeah. That's good. Just that word in there helps a lot, I think.
You had another good one, Jim, regarding the community involvement process, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Have we addressed that in the?
I have a question on that. Tammy, do we have community outreach first go around?
For them?
No, for the, oh, yeah,
We never got to.
no, we didn't. Never mind.
Oh, for those developers?
No, not for the developers, just what people wanted, but I think that was just the part, the linear, the trail.
Well, we did that during TCAP.
For the trail?
No, for what they wanted for the development, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, we
We
did
did
that
do
during
that.
TCAP, yeah.
Okay, so my point is just that I was wondering if we already had that type of outreach, meaning that it doesn't have to be too long drawn out, just maybe a lot of in the paper and then on Facebook, and then have that one opportunity with pictures so everybody knows what's going on and what's happening, so they're, because I thought I remember us doing that before. So,
Well, we did it then, and I guess my perspective, it would be if they get selected, then that would be part of their community engagement piece. Where they would meet with people and have storyboards and go over things and say, this is what we're planning on doing. And then when the community throws eggs at them, then they restructure it a little bit and do something different and come back and try it again.
eggs are too expensive.
Tomatoes, well, those are expensive too, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, how does this sound under design quality and, I'm putting it under design quality and differentiation, but it could probably go somewhere else too, or in its own section. Engaging the community in the site and architectural design of, oh, okay, well, I gotta word that differently, but engaging the community in the site and architectural design isn't working.
Maybe in the site vision or something along those lines. Some of it's gonna be very high level. Community's not gonna pick out the hinge styles or things like that.
Vision could work. It's gonna, we've done a lot of the visioning already though. We've told them what the vision is, and so I think that what we're asking them to do is involve us in your site design. Like, it's Diane saying, what are you putting? Where? So I think if we leave it as just site and architectural design, they'll get the picture, but engaging the community in the site and architectural design is important to ensuring they are connected to the space and excited for its success. Please describe your community engagement process and timeline. Changes.
What?
Proposed changes.
Okay, one, what about changing out excited for committed?
Two,
Yeah,
committed to its
Yeah.
success, yeah.
makes sense.
Any other proposed changes to that sentence, and does it accomplish what you were hoping it would accomplish? Okay, I feel like there might still be sections that,
I think we're getting close.
we're getting close.
Did we get Tanny's question regarding the phases?
No, that's the
somehow
section that I would
incorporated?
like to go over the phasing section, because I feel like the way it's worded in this is also confusing. So I think that our team introduction and role section sounds great. We added are there any additional partners that are not identified in your proposal? Do you want to expand upon that? I think, Tanny, that was one of your points.
They're not identified, and what are their roles?
Okay. Then we have the brief overview of your vision for the site. I think this is where we specifically say, tell us more about those public spaces. How will you activate them? What are the public facing commercial areas? Then we go into the riverfront design. We talk about the ground floor of the buildings along the riverfront. How will you ensure this edge is inviting to the visitors, users and residents? Describe your design approach for those ground levels. So I think that speaks to a lot of what Diane was getting at. Is there?
Can I make a
Yeah,
suggestion
yes.
here? I think maybe we ask them about their design process, and if they're going to take it into account the east wind,
Right.
the sunlight, and you know, shadows that could be cast from buildings onto patios and.
Right.
On things like relative heights of buildings, because I mean, a rooftop, something or other on part of the site doesn't do any good if other buildings sort of block everything.
Correct, because they could take a, you know, a stepped approach
Yeah.
to those higher, like 5-story buildings where they're, you know, higher on the west side than they are on the east side.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I've seen in some Riverwalk developments is, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we would even, that would be a good fit for this site, but I've seen where it's not just the ground floor that is commercial retail space. It's like the bottom, there's a ground floor retail and then also sort of a mezzanine retail that has, it's almost like a secondary promenade but going through the design process and how you optimize things like that to make best use of the river view, but also part of that design process is going to be how are they planning on melding and integrating with our existing park design? Because you certainly want the two of them to look like they were intended to go together.
So do you think describe your design approach for ground level uses and features that contribute to a welcoming and engaging experience for park and trail users accomplishes that? Yeah. More or less?
Yeah, I mean the nitty gritty of that will be in part of the conversation, but I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, and so then I added in something that we can wordsmith for what Erica just said. Please describe your design process. I'm gonna say for taking into account natural elements such as wind, sun, and rain. And then we go into how we want high quality design that enhances and honors the area's character, history, and I think that Diane said recreational appeal. Do we want to be specific about the appeal, or do we want it to just say appeal? Natural appeal?
I was thinking both natural and like you getting out and having your adventure in the gorge, you know what I mean? It's just, so I don't know. Whether that's, okay, say that, what's it, design quality? That, whether then also it's with, I was thinking landscaping as well, and then like large rocks or however you create that you're still part of the, you know, part of the gorge and this having that northwest vibe.
Mm-hmm. So does area's character, history, recreational attractions, and natural appeal say what you want it to say, or is it saying too much, or is it saying too little?
I like it.
Well, it says that if I'm into outdoor recreation, I can live here, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if I'm not?
You still can. Natural appeal, you can look at it.
You can go on the rooftop and sunbathe and.
No, you can move into an inner city somewhere where you don't have to look at any mountains or water or eagles or.
Or maybe you just like to be on the site and look at all those things, because you can see so much natural beauty just right there. You never even have to leave. Okay, so this is a really specific way of wording this question right here. In what ways does your proposal differentiate from conventional suburban garden style apartments, particularly regarding architectural features, site layouts, and amenities? They have proposed 3-story walk-ups in their proposal. We could be more specific about this and say, describe your design for, describe more of the design elements of the 3-story walk-up apartments versus 5-story elevator apartments.
How tall are 5 stories typically?
Roughly 10 feet per story, maybe 12.
What was it?
With a taller ground floor, so.
60 feet.
Yeah, I wanna say like 55, 60
Okay.
feet.
Maybe a little more than
The
that.
higher ground level is gonna be at least
You have 20-foot ground level plus 4 on
5,
top.
maybe 70.
The max I can do is 75,
Yeah.
so,
Okay, so we're gonna be able to still see the water tower from wherever,
yeah.
regardless.
With the
Okay.
variance, they go 10 stories.
Can I, again, my disclaimer, I'm trying to figure out, I know Victoria kind of alluded to the question too. Is there a reason, maybe Diane too, is there a reason that there's so few of, like only 57 units, townhouse units proposed and so many apartments and not more townhouses, or?
Tanny, I think what's.
Because apartments are easier in their higher income stream.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a density thing.
More dense.
Yeah.
okay.
It's more dense, it's easier to fill them. If you got a townhouse, you gotta find somebody to buy it. Apartment, you have to find somebody to rent it, much easier than
Okay.
finding somebody to buy it.
Okay,
Even if you're renting townhomes, the cost for building a townhome is more than the cost per multifamily apartment unit. So your costs are less while your revenue is, the revenue that you can get off of renting a townhome isn't necessarily that much greater than the revenue that you'd get off of renting the multifamily unit. So it doesn't necessarily price out to do, even if you were doing all rentals, it's still cheaper for you to do the multifamily buildings.
okay.
But the reason I did ask that question was at one point, I don't know which council, what they were comprised of, they wanted no apartments.
Yeah.
So that's why I was trying to see, the flexibility of having more homeownership, and also I don't know what the housing needs analysis is at this time, but we're sufficient at one time with the low income housing, but we were at a deficit for the high income.
We were at a deficit of like 500 plus on the higher end. We had deficits on both ends, but the
Yeah.
deficit was extremely
And these
more.
these are higher end ones that we're talking about?
No, we mean housing,
Oh,
not necessarily rental housing, but more ownership. It was definitely a deficit on that end. And then, too, if you remember the town center plan, that group probably would have had the word apartment struck out of the dictionary permanently if they could have. I mean, they didn't want that word in there at all.
If I may, I might also suggest that there's a bit of a dial that you have to kind of dial in with density and supporting that down there. And I don't know how many units per acre the townhomes are gonna be, but it's probably not gonna be that 25 per. And I'm sure somewhere in there, there's a calculation of how many people in an area are gonna support how much square footage of retail and dining and so on. That probably needs to be a part of the
Market
discussion
studies.
as well. There may be some of that, hey, if we really do want this an activated center with whatever, we need to make sure that we have a certain density of the population.
It's our new reality.
Well, but you also have to look at, when I moved here, there was very few apartments, but to get to downtown on the south side, you still have to travel downtown. It's not, these people are, when you have apartments and people that live close, they don't have to travel. We're like we're like not a stepchild, but we're like the outer limit of that the city, we can't support the city at our end of it, downtown area, because it's just not feasible. If you know what I mean, if the more people that are closer to downtown, the more people are gonna bring
Support that
in,
area.
and whether it be apartments, whether it be townhouses, the pedestrian flow has to be there to support the city. So if it's not there, the city's not gonna be vibrant, the downtown area will
No,
not be
those
vibrant.
stores will close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so having those apartments in there, I mean, they don't have to be like the ones, I'm looking at these as they go up, they're coming out really nice. And so I'm really impressed, because I wasn't too sure what they were gonna look like, because, you know, you get a concept, but you don't know. So, but having that plus that won't invigorate the downtown area, because they can actually walk to the downtown area.
But like you were talking about the commercial retail aspect, and that's also where access comes in, because even if you've got 300, 400 apartments down there,
Right,
that's probably, I mean, maybe 20% of what the need would be for those businesses. They'd have to pump in another 80% to survive.
And there'll be enough parking down there to be able to, you know, for the businesses that would go in.
That's the plan.
Okay, so, looking at the clock here, we're approaching 9 o'clock. Let's focus on Marley and this list and get our questions dialed so we can at some point call it a night.
Okay, so I modified that question a little bit. It says, describe the ways you plan to differentiate this development's walk-up style apartments. This could still be worded differently. I think it could say, I mean, they've just proposed the concept for now, you know, it
Right.
says 3-story walk-up apartments. I kind of like how in this first section of these questions, we almost lead with a statement every time. We say, we value this, show us how you're gonna do it.
What you gonna do about it?
Huh?
What you gonna do about it?
So maybe we say something like, we want the apartments to, how do you want the apartments to feel? We want the apartments to feel different from typical suburban garden style apartments.
This is what we value, and how is your development going to fulfill that?
That's good. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna delete, say apartments. Okay, we want the apartments to look more architecturally interesting than traditional suburban walk-up style apartments. Describe the ways you plan to differentiate this development's apartments from other conventional suburban apartments, particularly regarding architectural features, site layout, and amenities.
Is this true of the other housing units as well, or just the apartments?
I would say the whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
So we want the housing?
We're presuming there will be apartments, but I think just in general, we want the housing to
Yeah.
be attractive and reflect our area and so forth.
I'm
That's the tough part, yeah.
struggling with how to word this, because I'm trying to say something about how, you know, everything on the north side of downtown was built between 1998 and 2002. It's all built to look of a specific time era. Successfully tricks people all the time, all the time. So I'm trying to figure out a way to state that, like, we value architectural styles that are more historic in nature.
Are you wanting to reflect what we have on the north side of Main Street, is that what you're saying?
They connect with the history.
Yeah, be compatible, be.
I like connect with the history.
Yeah, because when I was talking about that, I wasn't necessarily thinking the buildings looked anything like they did downtown, because I like the big openness in the wood and then capturing all the views and stuff. I was thinking, add a mural, use some of the post lights, the old lights that we have in downtown.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, get Rip to build a couple sculptures that are honoring somebody historic, whatever. So I was thinking, not the buildings. I don't want them to think they came into some other country, rode the trail and then happened upon, I wasn't thinking, I think they should, personally, I thought some of the examples they had in here, I was like, oh, that's interesting, big, open,
The
wide,
more
big
Pacific
windows.
Northwest modern. I mean, they're showing a lot of Pacific Northwest modern in here.
Right,
Yeah.
but when I was talking historic, that's what, remember I took the same photos that they put in the hotel, the murals. I was thinking of the other things.
Tanny looks like he's desperate to say something.
No, I'm not desperate, but, and then somehow, how are they going to integrate that with natural elements and then the whole light, wind, sound, all of those things? Because I think that warrants saying that again, because that's such a factor. The tall buildings with the light, the issue with the wind, the sound with the freeway and the train. I think those all have to be accounted
We
for.
get a decent amount of rain too. Maybe that's part of the thoughts about the plaza and areas, will there be space for when it's raining? Maybe some of the lower shops have overhangs that make it easier to walk about in that area.
Oh, yeah.
How are they gonna handle stormwater? There you go.
Yeah.
That's a whole other detailed conversation.
Right.
I don't really think that's very funny anymore.
Brain's not working. We want the housing to look more architecturally interesting than traditional suburban walk-up style apartments, be responsive to the natural elements, and
Comfortable in various weather conditions.
Reflect hurricane force winds and,
Wasn't that in the standard, though, in the,
I think be responsive to the natural elements is
Right.
stating
Yeah.
what you were getting at, but I'm still trying to say something that says, well, originally I was gonna say,
Well, incorporate historical elements, does something like that work?
or
I guess
northwest
wind's
elements?
I
historical.
think it's too
Oh,
separate.
yeah,
Yeah, it is,
We're talking
it's,
specifically
yeah.
about the housing, that would be
Yeah.
more like.
It is,
Take it home
yeah.
and work on it. We trust you.
we want the housing to look more architecturally interesting than traditional suburban walk-up style apartments and be responsive to the natural elements. Describe the ways you plan to differentiate this development's apartments from other conventional suburban apartments, particularly regarding architectural features, site layout, and amenities.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have engaging the community in the site and architectural design is important to ensuring they are connected to the space and committed to its success. Please describe your community engagement process and timeline. I think the and timeline part is very important.
You wanna just make that its own section, is having that as a bullet point under design sort of, I think, minimizes.
A community engagement section.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying earlier, that it could go in its own.
And then involve the
We value community
historical
engagement.
part in that section as well.
Okay, so maybe I am going to need to rewrite all of this and then send it to you guys.
Which I think is fine.
We value community engagement, ... Write the rest later. Okay.
Would that be also a good section to incorporate like, the historical context and the site layout, I guess, with parks, or not parks, but historical society, or is that not the right
I think it's separate.
spot?
I think it's separate. I think that the community engagement is having the community be involved in this process.
Gotcha.
And of that, an outcome may be an emphasis on the historical aspects.
Fair, yeah.
So don't put it,
No, don't put it in there.
because I do think that
It's
that is
not-
something that will come out, that should come out of the community engagement process, because, I mean, like what you were just saying just now is different than what I thought would, you know, like, we haven't talked about architectural styles for buildings. We've talked so much about the vision for the site, but we haven't really talked about, do you like this building? Do you like this building? What do you like about this? You know, we haven't really done any of that
You
sort
know,
of work
and
yet.
and their team might come out and do that work with the community.
Yeah,
They might have.
Design charrettes
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
will be
that-
fun.
That gets much more into the weeds of.
yeah.
Right, it's all about vision, it's all about preference, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, we just haven't done that yet, so we don't know what everyone likes design-wise, but it'll be an interesting process, and maybe they'll have some interesting ideas for ways that you can tell history. Like, I always think about how, well, this is an industrial site. Should we have brick buildings, because brick is, like, speaks to the industrial era, even though we don't have any of the old buildings anymore, or, you know, there's lots of different things that they could do, so we just haven't discussed that part yet, but, okay, moving on. Development timeline and key milestones. This is a lot
Yeah. it's
of
not-
phase one stuff. Tanny made a very good point about how phase two and or three are where a lot of the elements that what you guys all wanna see are probably going to happen. Cause phase one is going to be primarily multifamily, because that's how they can start generating revenue. So I think we need to reword this, cause this is too much.
Would it be beneficial to have as part of this sort of timeline section, kind of a more 10,000-foot view of what is your anticipated phase breakdown? Like, what is your high-level phase one goals? What are your high-level phase two goals?
Right, and then the other piece of it is, what if phase two doesn't happen?
Right, yeah, what are the consequential touch points or decision points during phase one that will affect consequential changes to phase two? And what is the decision-making plan over the course of the project?
Briefly explain the metrics that are gonna have to be met before phase two is engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
What does happen if you just build apartments and say, we can't do 2 and 3?
That's why you have to have a really good
That's why you have to
negotiation.
have, yeah, you have to have a very good document. Otherwise, you end up with just apartments.
Okay.
Then, of course, the other thing that we get into is when you're doing the infrastructure. Are you doing all the infrastructure, or are you just doing part of it, you know? Are you doing the phase one infrastructure, are you doing 2 and 3?
Some of that you don't have a choice, because if you don't get enough of it in the ground, you can't go back and put more of it in later.
Well, what I mean is, it's like, okay, we're gonna do the sewer and water and everything here, because that's where we're working, we're gonna do the other stuff later. But then as you get through the agreement, then you have a problem, because 2 and 3 didn't get done, and then you end up having to pay somebody later to put those in, when it all should have been part of the same development.
Okay, so outline the anticipated development timeline covering, I think we can be more succinct, covering what you anticipate occurring in each phase, critical metrics to ensuring all phases are completed. I'm looking at you
Has-
while I'm typing, because I don't.
Yeah, part completed is good. You know, within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah, not 30 years.
We're gonna get on it. Someday.
I'll be in a nursing home by then.
You're not allowed off the committee until.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be on the committee then. For sure.
Surely, you guys aren't done yet, or?
We'll be writing it in, be on Zoom.
From my assisted care facility.
You're gonna know you feel it.
You're older than I am.
I know.
All right, okay, let's be clear about that.
I lived next door to Betsy Ross, didn't you know that?
You were Betsy Ross.
Okay, so I modified it a little bit to say outline the anticipated development timeline covering what uses you anticipate building in each phase. Critical metrics to ensuring all phases are completed within a reasonable time frame. Infrastructure development. Anything else?
Infrastructure, construction, and dedication, maybe.
Or just another
Okay,
relevant,
you good?
yes.
Right.
We've already asked them about the community engagement timeline, so I feel like we don't necessarily need to put that in here. But maybe they will cover that in here too. This phase one scope and financial considerations. I kind of feel like we're already asking them
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I would.
And then, so this could really just be financial considerations. Do you anticipate positive residual land value for the first phase? If so, are you prepared to speculate on a purchase price?
I may ask them that question.
Do we wanna delete it or keep it?
Yeah,
It seems like
This
that's
was
part of
one
the
of those-
negotiation phase.
This is a question that one of the,
they had.
well, it was one of the questions that one of our development professionals last go around added to this because they said it was important.
It is. Because it's like if we're expecting, you know, X value and they're not.
Well, if
Is
anything,
there a
we
trade-off?
can leave it in there. If they answer it, they answer it.
So you kind of need to know that pretty early.
Yeah, I get that, I just, trying to think of another way to phrase it.
Do you have any money?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
if we
okay,
look at
I'll
their
think
deal
about it.
terms section, they say, our preference is to purchase a fee simple interest in the Confluence property.
Right?
I feel like we added another question about this.
We did, somewhere.
Are you open to any other deal
Deal
terms
terms,
than a fee simple title? Do we wanna leave that question there, or do we wanna,
I would move that, maybe that question above.
Because you know what we saw last time, a lot of them wanted to trade off rather than pay for the land.
yeah, well, that's what they're gonna want too.
There.
Even though they don't really say that.
I think I want this to come after this.
Yeah.
And is that the correct way to word all of that? Okay.
I might think about it tomorrow.
I'm trying to keep all of our changes in red. I don't know if I've been very successful at it, but trying to keep the changes in red so we can keep track of what we've modified. Okay, so that's all for the presentation section.
While we're on deal terms, can I ask a question that maybe I don't have the current answer to? Under the deal terms, the bottom paragraph, it says, "We intend to utilize TIF funds for infrastructure upgrades such as the I-84 ramp, upgrades to 257, streets within the confluence site to be dedicated to the city, as well as any public uses such as a plaza or pocket parks. Another potential use for the TIF funds is the cost of the proposed pedestrian connection through or other required modifications to the Columbia Gorge outlets." Maybe you have maybe somebody could answer for me. Are those typically things that we're collecting the TIF funds for, or are there asks in there that are like, I don't know, it's not really?
You're collecting TIF funds, or you can collect it you can use TIF funds for the development.
Improvement.
So it's a reasonable use, it's just, I think the dilemma you're gonna run into is you're not gonna have enough TIF funds to accomplish all that. So then you've gotta get a little more creative.
Is there a question that should be asked in there regarding the difference between the amount of TIF funds and the things that they want to do, and where are they going to start cutting stuff, chopping and slicing if the funds aren't there, or is that not really a question at this point to ask?
I guess I would say, you can look at trading off other things if there's no TIF funds, right? If you had to. Because part of it's going through the mall, right, and that's private property, and so, there's a whole bunch of weird kind of components to it. So some of it maybe, this comes from here, and this goes over here, and this
Just
does this.
reorganize it.
But the TIF funds, they'll be what they are.
Well,
May be greater than.
so basically what we could write is the list of infrastructure projects described as being constructed using TIF funds is likely greater than the funds available. Prioritize.
Well, you have TIF funds available, right? Do you need to prioritize, or you just need to?
It depends on what we wanna know out of, it depends on what really we wanna get out of this. What, the amount of.
If the list of infrastructure projects described is more costly than the available TIF funds, or cannot be accomplished using existing TIF funds, what would your priority?
Or exceeds the.
Exceeds, yeah. Exceeds available TIF funds, comma, what would your priority matrix be? Or how would you determine priority?
What creative solutions do you have, ideas do you have to make sure those are all accomplished, or something like that?
Or ensuring projects are completed or possible?
Yeah, I think wording this in a way where
We want to presume that it will happen, how will it happen? Or present it that the expectation is they'll happen.
And if you don't care about how they prioritize these projects, we don't have to ask them that, we can just ask them the creative solution question, but if you do care about what they see, because I mean, it's a wide range of things. They say I-84 ramp,
And they may not know because they have to do additional studies.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
these could be things that they also don't know they have to do. 257th Way, streets within the confluence, public uses. I think one of the things that, I remember this coming up last time, everyone was really excited about all the public gathering spaces, the public plazas that are proposed. And there was not as much I mean, there's just a little bit of a disconnect on, the developer isn't proposing to pay for those things. They're putting them on the site plan because we've asked for them, but they're proposing that we actually pay for them. So maybe that's our most important thing that we wanna spend the TIF dollars on, but for the developer, the most important thing for them to spend the TIF dollars on is the
So-
roads and the sewers through the development.
So that becomes part of the negotiation process, which is way down the line.
Yeah,
I would think that then we just take that priority thing out there and just say available, comma, what creative solutions do you have? Then we're not kind of offering up the loss of parts of the project in the beginning. It's all gonna be negotiated later and we're all gonna go, how did that happen?
maybe funding all necessary projects.
Sure.
Yeah, cause then they talk about the connection and then the overpay, there's a lot of very expensive
Well, the word necessary
tickets.
then implies priority as well, right?
Okay,
it's
so-
still in there. No, it's fine, I'm not complaining about that, I'm just saying that it leaves a little bit of room there.
Maybe, what creative solutions do you have for funding any projects not covered by TIF?
Good.
Ultimately, what we're after is some level of confidence that they're not going to make assumptions or forget about critical pieces and run out of money before those critical pieces are done. Right.
Yeah, and during the site visit, they did ask me questions about our TIF district, and I sent them the links for where they can find more information on the URA budget and the structure and all of that, so that I know that they have all of that, because I already sent it to them, so they're aware of the structure of it all.
I'll burn through that.
They will.
How many more pages are here on this?
Just these two.
Okay. That's not good. That's right.
If we would prefer to, oh, there was the one question under the commercial component about how do you plan to recruit commercial businesses to this space? Has a commercial broker for the retail been identified? How involved in the commercial brokerage and retail recruitment process can the city be, or would you like the city to be?
Yes, I'd like you to be, because your vision and quality standards and I mean, you just could, and your relationships that you have started to establish as well. I think you have a invested interest of quality, you have the right vibe for, yeah.
So how involved in the commercial brokerage and retail recruitment process? Should we say, can the city be? Should we say, do you want the city to be? I mean, maybe we say, do you want the city to be? Because if they say, we don't want the city involved in that at all.
Yeah. Do you want
Then
the
know
city to
something about that.
participate? Yeah.
What if you just said this, how do you plan to recruit commercial businesses to the site, and would you like the city to be involved in this process?
That's awesome.
Because you might not know who the broker is at this point.
And I figure you
That's
wouldn't
true.
know unless they've already like made a deal with Norris and Stevens, because they do the outlet mall, but we don't know, I mean.
Right.
But yeah, I think that wording, then we'll see what they say about city
Does that need a
involvement.
we statement for that? We envision local northwest, blah, blah, blah.
These ones are
and
just
that.
the conversational questions, so they don't have the statements in them. But I might give this another proofread when
Yeah,
and when it's
totally.
not 9:30,
Totally.
9:15 at night, and just send it back out to you for, another final okay.
And I'm just saying that too because I liked when the group we picked before that, Sam and them had their team and they had their strategy to assure some potential excellence that we'd all get excited about, because the council keeps saying we want to stand out, we want to be unique, we want to be different, we want to be the go-to place. Well, how do you have to have some special components for that to occur?
I already have a list of businesses that are interested in
Oh, nice.
commercial spaces down there. They're just waiting to know who the developer is, so.
Nice.
But at the same time, you don't know, you can't dictate,
No,
it
No.
could be Sam and then next week Sam's gone.
Yeah. So we kind of we asked about the publicans, this was, I'm taking it out.
I deleted it.
Do we wanna know if they would consider a long-term ground lease?
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Tammy's not
Again,
gonna.
it's preliminary to negotiations,
Yeah,
but that
you'd
could be-
rather not.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be if they needed a ground lease,
What did they ask for it if they needed that?
would they? Oh, they might.
Well, and it's not like our deal terms section of the RFQ said, we want you to do a ground
Right. Because we,
lease.
in a perfect world, we sell it. And it gets on the tax rolls.
We asked them if they're open to any other deal terms and
Yeah.
a fee simple interest. We've basically, we don't need to
Left that open.
specify a type of deal structure that we don't actually want.
Right.
So I just took it off.
You could trade it for bark dust or something.
I think we're good. It will, oh, good, it's auto saving. I don't even have to do it.
One last thing I'd like to do is open it up for public comment
Oh,
on
great.
this. See if Paul has anything, if Frank has anything.
Will, this is Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
I just have a question from early on in your meeting, when you were talking about the meeting schedule. Sounded like from here it goes to a panel comprised of council, some TCAB members and some outside advisors possibly. Then it goes back to TCAB. So I'm thinking TCAB should have access to that panel meeting so they know what went on there. So is there any, I assume that'll be a public meeting that'll be recorded?
Yes, so that will be a public meeting. TCAB members, if they wanna come watch that meeting, they are more than welcome to, and it'll be on the city's
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
And website, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, we made a page for it last time too, so even if you wanted to go back and have some of the old interviews, you could do that if you wanted to. They're all up there.
Okay, looking to check number 2 off the list here. Any additional comments or suggestions for this list of questions? All right, seeing none, let's move on to number 3 and the third one, which is who do we want the interview panel to be made up with? Sorry, Marley, were y'all done?
No, I'm done, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
push it forward.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we needed a motion or anything, but I don't think we do.
don't.
No.
No.
So you had on there previously on that list there, who makes up the interview panel, 2 TCAB members, 2 city council, 2 staff, and then 1 or 2 local development professionals. Is there any thoughts, comments on that list?
Good to me.
This Jim, I like the balance of that.
I as well.
What'd you say?
Said I like the balance of that,
Oh.
mixture of that group.
Sure.
And as Paul pointed to earlier, this will be a public interview process. So just because, you won't necessarily be one of the people asking one of these questions, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to attend it in person or attend it virtually or watch it later. So this is all open. It's just who's gonna be sitting there asking the questions directly and sort of having that more conversation with the development team.
But not open for public comment or public questions.
It's not open to public comment or public questions, no.
Can I nominate Tanny to be one of the people? Is that a fair game thing, or is that not?
Not sure.
Are we there yet?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Definitely would be a good choice. Okay, do we need to do a vote on that at all?
Let's make a recommendation on the panel.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can talk about who from TCAB should be on the panel.
I move that we recommend that the panel be comprised as Will described with 222.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
I,
Any opposition? Okay, hearing none. Good work, you guys. Thank you very much, Maya. That's really good work on the fly. Very impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, staff communications.
Oh, did you
Do we wanna talk about who from
Who's
TCAB
gonna
wants to
be?
be on
Oh,
the
do
panel?
we need that? Okay, I apologize.
I think at the very least, we should make a recommendation on, it's just the TCAP part, right?
Yeah,
That's the other part there.
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
We
great.
can recommend the council part too. Tell me what they should do.
Would you please pull up for us the dates so that anybody we nominate can make sure that they are available and in town?
It's
Yep.
May 15th.
May 15th.
We have not determined any time of the day. I have this room reserved 24 hours.
Okay, I heard a nomination earlier for Tanny to be one of those members. Was there a second?
I second.
Okay, and is there a second nomination? Should we do
we'll do one at a time.
one at a time? Okay. All in favor of Tanny?
Aye.
I propose our second person be Will.
I second.
Let me double check here real quick.
It's gonna come up with something. I'm going grocery shopping.
Just the town. Alright, so-
There you go.
I primarily say that because that's our chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
Right,
Our
and I
representative.
think they're,
That's fair. Motion was seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I.
Any opposition? Alright, none? Thank you for reminding me of that. Anything else or staff communications?
I think we're at the staff communications point. So,
I don't think I have any communications for TCAB this evening.
Okay. Let's go to board member comments. Do you want to start for us, Victoria?
I'm good. We did a lot of work tonight. Thank you.
Start over here with Sherry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much and everybody. Thanks for playing along with my not knowing so much.
I want to thank the staff for all the hard work and the members as well. Also, please, on 257, be aware of the construction. It changes daily, and some roads will close. There will be no left turn. And please do not run over the orange dividers because they're those poor guys have to put them back up, and they're scattered everywhere. But do pay attention, there is a construction zone speed. And when they, especially coming out of where I live, you have to cut across, there is no safety lane. So I go a different direction because I don't want to get hit by another car. So just be safe.
I want to thank Marley and Erica in particular for the work on this, great job.
You're here.
Thank you. And one other thing to bring up, the intersection of Columbia River Highway and Buxton. If you happen to be traveling west on Columbia River Highway and someone is going to turn left to go up Buxton, that's a very difficult turn to do. I've noticed a number of people, traffic backs up behind them and they end up going straight and they go down to Kendall, go up to Second and over, and that is not a good solution for that. It's just putting more traffic on Second and Kendall, and then you're asking them to turn and go up the hill. So I mean, is there a possibility to do something that is a right turn without stopping, but they yield to a left turn?
We've talked about this intersection numerous times with the county and different solutions, and you know, our ultimate solution would be a signal. At that intersection. We've talked about maybe doing some preliminary work to look at that signal and how it could be put in the future. Let me, I'll go ahead, I'm meeting with Multnomah County's transportation staff next Monday. So I will bring up this concern and see where it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, ditto on, thanks for all the hard work from staff on this. I had a couple highlights from me. Once again, just kind of highlighting the unevenness of terrain that Buxton has turned into since the completion of the asphalt and ADA work. And wondering if that's going to get addressed at some point by the county. And that going back to parking concerns, 4th Street during the day is very much every day along its entire length between Public Works and Buxton is a single lane of traffic for the entire length of the block. And that's, somebody's gonna get hit, by somebody if we don't figure out a way to mitigate that somehow. Maybe it's encouraging Bremick to have some sort of shuttle service for their workers or something. Some of them carpool, I know that, but there's a lot of cars down there that are just single occupancy things. So maybe that's something we can bring up with Bremick. Also wanted to highlight that the inaugural edition of the Troutdale Family Game Day happened. It was lightly attended, to say the least, but logistically it all went off, and it worked. So the next one will be in June, and I look forward to seeing people down there for that. So,
What's the date on that?
I would have to look it up. June 12th sticks in my head, but yeah, it's in the Parks and Rec guide and on the website.
Thank you for leading that, providing that for the community. Jim?
Another repeat of thanks for your work. You guys have been great. This is a heavy lift. Appreciate it. Good meeting tonight. Thanks, Bill.
I'd like to thank you all as well, and I'm grateful you're as intelligent as you are. And this lovely, well, and because planners, you're different faces, not everybody, I mean, I'm just really excited about you two as a team to guide us forward into whatever occurs within this beautiful town. And then, fun footnote, I had let Marley know the other day, there was 3 sea lions eating salmon the other day by the Troutdale Bridge. So,
Sea lions?
yes, there went,
Now they come up the river.
yeah, not as stellar this time. Usually there's one big plumpy sea lion that goes up. Glenn told me those are stellar. And it comes up and it falls and it goes down and it thrashes. And this time it was 3, not as large, so
Not
it's a
as
different type, not
voluptuous.
stellar. And they were just playing, having a good time for several hours. So when it finally got in front by the Troutdale Bridge, that's when I let Marley know, in case I just had my phone and
I
I
know, it
couldn't
wasn't-
capture it. It was just so, Troutdale's so cool. So just, yeah, I'm excited for the trail to be done and stuff, so everybody else can enjoy a lot of these beautiful sights and the eagles and everything else. That's fun.
Yeah, I've heard the sea lions will go all the way up to the Bonneville Dam
Yeah.
this time of
Yeah.
year.
In
Yeah.
fact,
I didn't know they would go up the Sandy too, so.
Yeah,
They go up further than your place.
do they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
our place.
Nice.
You're embarking.
Barking, yes.
So yeah, again, reiterating what everybody said, just applauding, great work. And I'd say after 20 years of the urban renewal happening, this has got some hope for me. I really hope that we got the right team, developers and everybody to really see this come to fruition this time. So appreciate you all, thank you for being here, and we hear a motion to close.
I move that we close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night.